Welcome crew, secure your tin full hats, buckle down tight, and hold on loosely as we soar over the rocky tops of the La Platas on a rocky mountain high, get sucked into the vortex of the Four Corners, and settle down snugly at mile marker 420 in colorful Colorado. It is Saturday, August 5th, Sunday, August 6th for those of you across the pond and beyond. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you, and welcome once more to We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. I'm your host, TessaTNT, and we are broadcasting live from the Mile High Clubhouse tonight. So glad you could join us. If you're joining live, you may be watching from Facebook. And I forgot to make the announcement on my page that we were doing it from We Are Paradox Media's page, so I'm not just giving out my personal name to everyone in the world. And people are listening from so many places. It's pretty awesome. You may also be watching us live from Twitch as well as YouTube under We Are Paradox Media. If you want to listen to us live at the moment, you can listen to us on KPNL Radio, which you can find on KPNL Radio at kpnl-db.com. You may also find us live on Spreaker under We Are Paradox Media, as well as eTalk Radio, which you can find on etalk.tv/radio. I want to go through all the places you can listen to us, but basically you can listen to us, as far as I'm seeing, on any sort of podcast or audio place that you can go, such as Spotify or Apple Podcasts or iHeartRadio. If you don't mind, mosey on over to our YouTube channel, We Are Paradox Media. Give us a like there. Let me make sure the sound's working. Alright, looks like it's working there. Looks like it's working here. And let me know in the chat room also if there's any audio issues or anything. Getting back to it, if you don't mind, go over to our YouTube, We Are Paradox Media. Please like any video that you've watched or listened to, and please subscribe. Don't forget to give that bell a little tickle. That way next time we have a show come out, you will be made privy to it. So tonight I have a treat for all my guys and gals out there. Tonight we will be doing story time and spooky videos with me, TessaTNT. And I think since we do have a lot of listeners, some watchers, we'll start with the stories and then we'll end with a video. That way everybody can get into it, and if people don't want to listen to the scary videos, which they are pretty cool to just listen to, because I do that most of the time. I'm doing something so I can't see the video, but I can listen to it. Yes, story time video. It's going to be awesome. And any sort of guests you'd like to have on the show, let us know at weareparadoxmedia@gmail.com, or leave us a comment anywhere that you're watching or listening, and hopefully we'll find it. Yes. So for story time, we are still working on the world's 100 greatest mysteries, Strange Secrets of the Past Revealed. This is by Randall Floyd, and it's been very good so far, I must say. We are on page 223. Yeah, this book has been pretty awesome. I've really been enjoying it. So the next story is The Shroud of Turin. In a chapel of the cathedral at Turin in northern Italy lies a shroud that millions of Christians revere as the burial cloth in which the crucified body of Christ was wrapped. On the cloth, which is about 14 feet long and 3 feet 6 inches wide, the dim brown image of a dead and disfigured man can be seen, almost like a photographic imprint. At the top can be seen the compelling features of a bearded man, so like the commonly accepted face of Christ that those who cherish the shroud are convinced that the resemblance must be more than mere coincidence. If genuine, the cloth is the most impressive and moving relic to have come down to us from the time of Christ. But is it real? I don't know. I haven't seen it in person, but on certain shows it's been very impressive. For centuries, skeptics have repeatedly proclaimed doubts of its authenticity. Controversy still rages, but 20th century science has surprisingly made the voice of the skeptics less strident than it used to be. Tests by impartial scientists are producing increasingly firm evidence that what is revered by so many is, in fact, the shroud of someone who was crucified in Palestine around the time that Jesus died. Whether the body was that of Christ can probably never be ascertained. The burial cloth, under investigation, bears the marks on its left-hand portion of the front, on its right-hand portion of the back, of a man around 35 to 40 years old, and about 5 feet 6 inches tall. There is evidence of a wound in the ribs and of bleeding from the forearms. Even more striking are bloodstains in the head area, proof, say some, that a crown of thorns had been placed around the victim's head. One of the most controversial issues, of course, is how the shroud came to bear such clear imprints of the body it covered. Another equally vexing problem arises from the fact that there is no record of its existence before 1357, when it was publicly exhibited at the small French town of Lyre, or is it Lyre? At that time, the cloth belonged to a noble French family, the de Charnys, who never explained how it had come into their possession. Among the many people, both inside and outside the church, who nevertheless had faith in its authenticity, we, the powerful Dukes of Savoy, to whom the controversial relic was bequeathed in 1453. At first they kept it in their capital city of Cambrai, where it was slightly damaged by fire in 1532. Then, in 1578, they moved their capital to Turin, where the shroud was enshrined in a cathedral chapel built expressly for it. There it has lain since, venerated by many, although the Catholic Church itself has never declared it valid. Skeptics suggest the figure imprinted on the shroud was simply painted sometime in the 14th century. One American expert, Walter McCrone, insists that the bloodstains are unnaturally red for 2,000-year-old blood and were probably made by some artificial substance, probably rose madder, a paint pigment favored by medieval artists. On the other hand, scientific tests have revealed that blood found in the shroud contains the right mixture of calcium, protein, and iron. Textile experts have also concluded that the weave of the linen is of a type common in Palestine 2,000 years ago, and that its fibers contain traces of cotton, which does not grow in Europe. The Devil's Triangle. Christopher Columbus might have been the first to notice something strange about the vast expanse of Atlantic Ocean now known as the Bermuda Triangle. In his log, the genius explorer wrote about flaming balls of fire whizzing through the skies and glowing streaks of white in the surface. 5 centuries later, American astronauts orbiting the Earth described similar mysterious patches of light and foam off Bermuda. Today, this picturesque, seemingly peaceful stretch of Atlantic Ocean ranging from Florida and Puerto Rico to Bermuda continues to draw attention because of its alleged link to the disappearance of thousands of people and hundreds of ships and planes. Some officials, including the U.S. Coast Guard, now regard the Bermuda Triangle as one of the most dangerous maritime regions in the world. During the past century, this 3-sided area of the Atlantic, known also as the Devil's Triangle, Hoodoo Sea, Limbo of the Lost, as well as Bermuda Triangle, has claimed more than 50 ships and 20 aircraft. Such losses have prompted many experts to recommend more study of the region, especially the erratic weather patterns that occasionally baffle meteorologists. The seas out there can be just indescribable, says one veteran Coast Guard captain. The waves break, and you get a vertical wall of water from 30 to 40 feet high coming down on you. Unless a boat can take complete submergence in a large breaking sea, she cannot live. The Coast Guard averages 8,000 distress calls a year in the area. Most problems stem from boats running out of gas or being swamped in storms. But a few are just plain mysterious, one officer declared. It wasn't until December 1945 that the world's attention was focused on this mysterious realm covering almost 1 million square miles of ocean. That's when a squadron of Navy bombers vanished off Florida. The 27 crewmen of Navy Flight 19, based at Fort Lauderdale, Florida, Naval Station, were on a routine training mission when the lead pilot, Lieutenant Charles Carroll Taylor, radioed that he was lost and gave the following cryptic message: "Everything is wrong. We can't be sure of any direction. Even the ocean doesn't look as it should." Shortly after communications broke down with Flight 19, a Martin Mariner rescue plane with a crew of 13 was dispatched to the general area. Inexplicably, the rescue plane vanished too. Despite a massive air-sea rescue operation involving 300 planes and hundreds of ships and submarines, no trace of Flight 19 or the rescue plane was found. 18 months later, an Army Air Corps Superfortress bomber disappeared 100 miles off Bermuda without even signaling any hint of trouble. Again, an immediate search of 100,000 square miles of sea turned up no wreckage. A few years later, a DC-3 with 36 people aboard apparently evaporated within sight of Miami. "We are approaching the field only 50 miles to the south," the pilot told the control tower. "We can see the lights of Miami now. All's well. We'll stand by for landing instructions." The plane vanished from the radar screen a few seconds later. The spot where the aircraft supposedly went down was over the Florida Keys, where clear waters only 20 feet deep should have made the DC-3 visible.
Someone was screaming at me, but
Go.
he wasn't even talking to me. Well, he was in the other room, and I had my headphones on.
Excuse me.
I was full volume. And now it says, yeah, I was
Get out of here right now. I'm doing my show, and this is ridiculous.
Maybe next time just what?
Just go. And don't come back again. Apologies, little rascals. Dang it, no, where was I? The plane vanished from the radar screen a few seconds later. The spot where the aircraft supposedly went down was over the Florida Keys, where clear waters only 20 feet deep should have made the DC-3 visible. More bizarre evidence was piling up from other pilots. One of the most unusual stories was given by the pilot of a Pan Am DC-3, who said he had to swerve violently to avoid colliding with a mysterious luminous object off the coast of Florida. Speculation abounded about the Bermuda Triangle's alleged connection with extraterrestrials, time warps, Atlantis, mystical rays from the sun, sea monsters, and the supernatural. Some experts suspected undersea earthquakes, tidal waves, or magnetic fields might be behind the strange occurrences, while skeptics point to purely natural causes, human error, mechanical breakdown, Gulf Stream currents, and sudden violent changes in weather. A growing number of scientists insist that there is a problem, probably more to the story than is being told. Charles Berlitz, who has done more to popularize the triangle than any other author, puts forward the theory that a giant solar crystal, which once supplied power for the lost continent of Atlantis, lies on the ocean floor. Periodically, he says, passing ships or planes trigger this crystal, which befuddles their instruments and sends them to their doom. It should be stated that the Bermuda Triangle is one of only 2 places on Earth where a compass needle points to true rather than magnetic north. The other, called the Devil's Sea, lies in the Pacific northeast of Japan. Ironically, a group of scientists disappeared while investigating the area in 1955. Nothing has been heard of them since. Very strange.
It's still being driven and not sure or telling me what he was going to do.
Okay, you really need to go right now and tell Floyd if he doesn't stop, everything goes off. Please go.
Do it, and he's gonna come in here.
No, he's not. Get out now and go take care of it. Yeah. Little monsters will be little monsters. See if I can find the show on this other channel. Make sure I'm not ignoring the chat room on Facebook. There's one comment. Because other channel. Make sure. Sargasso Sea. Just off the southern tip of the United States lie millions of square miles of weed-choked ocean that for centuries has inflamed the imagination of mariners. It's the Sargasso Sea, legendary graveyard of ships and men. According to maritime lore, this mysterious watery realm is the tomb of thousands of unfortunate ocean voyagers who sailed into its foreseen tangles and became trapped forever. Until recent times, sailors went to great lengths to avoid the cursed island of the dead. Many familiar with Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea assumed it was inhabited by demons and horrible long-tentacled monsters. It was a darkly tangled, word without wind, wave storm. Victims who became ensnared in the twisting, you guys are going to have to excuse me for one moment. My apologies.
It's fine. He's still on the topic.
Get out right now.
Still on the topic.
Get out right now. You.
I ain't gonna show her anymore.
Yeah, you
Now-
are.
But
You said
now
that
I
in the first
forgot.
place.
She took way too long.
Whatever. Go.
I forgot.
You. I have something to do 2 times a week that is like a hobby of mine, and you guys don't care.
Look,
And you're so
I
disrespectful.
do care.
Good.
but
Turn it all off.
this
Every
stuff-
single thing. You guys can sit out
We
there
did.
and be quiet.
We did because you said someone was being a little time rat.
Get out right now.
No, I forgot.
Do not even come back. And if you do, you're in trouble. Alright, let's try this again. It was a darkly tangled world without wind, wave, or storm. Victims who became ensnared in the twisting, treacherous coils of the weed were doomed to drift helplessly upon the unyielding sea for all eternity. Stories circulated at seaport taverns about wayward ships getting caught in the entangling currents, never to be seen or heard from again. The rotting remains of Chinese junks, Viking warships, Irish curraghs, and Spanish galleons were said to float ghost-like upon the still waters, the creaking timbers and the mournful wails of skeletal crews echoing on the night wind. In July 1884, the Britannia, bound for London from Buenos Aires, came across a merchant ship that had apparently been abandoned in the Sargasso? I think that's it. There were a few corpses on board, but most of the crew and passengers were missing. Nowadays, it is known that the dreaded sea, which covers nearly 3 million miles between North America and Europe, is actually one of the safest places in the ocean. Warm currents and calm winds prevail over still glass-smooth waters, and only occasionally does an ocean-going vessel come in contact with the once feared sargassum weed. Such was not the case 500 years ago when the man who discovered America first laid eyes on the mysterious Sargasso Sea. On his maiden voyage to the New World, Christopher Columbus saw what he took to be long strands of seaweed stretching in every direction as far as the eye could see. At first, the veteran sea captain took heart at the sight, thinking that perhaps his tiny flotilla was nearing land. But his optimism soon turned to terror when he realized just how thick grew the ancient weeds. More than any other single factor, Columbus's grim account about the perils of the Sargasso Sea helped inspire the terror that would fill the hearts of future generations of seafarers. Fear of the Sargasso and its clutching embrace of death soon became an obsession with sailors and ocean-going travelers everywhere. The Sargasso is cold and deep, averaging more than 3 miles in some spots. It is also home to many unusual life forms, including crabs, shrimp, octopus, and snake-like eels that migrate here from Europe, the Mediterranean, and rivers in the eastern United States each year to mate, spawn, and die. The region got its name from Portuguese explorers who preceded Columbus. They christened it Sargaco, the Portuguese word for grape, because they thought the thick clusters of seaweed resembled grapes. The mystery of this haunting region lives on, and despite the testimony of some questionable sources, no evidence exists to suggest that any vessel, ancient or modern, has ever been lost in the Sargasso Sea. The Lindbergh Tragedy. On the night of March 4th, 1932, the infant son of Colonel Charles A. Lindbergh was taken from the second-floor nursery of the Lindbergh home in Hopewell, New Jersey. The kidnapper or kidnappers left behind a note saying the 20-month-old Charles A. Lindbergh Jr. would be returned unharmed in exchange for $50,000. 11 days later, despite the Lindberghs' agreement to pay the ransom, a truck driver found the child's badly decomposed body in a shallow grave a few miles from his house. His skull had been shattered. Hello, tiniest squish. Hey, Jay. Portals. A 36-year-old German immigrant named Richard Bruno Hauptmann was arrested and convicted of the kidnapping and murder. 4 years later, on April 3rd, 1936, Hauptmann went to the electric chair maintaining his innocence. Thus ended one of the saddest and most bizarre chapters in American criminal history. The Lindbergh kidnapping, coming so soon after the handsome aviator's celebrated transatlantic flight, sent shockwaves around the world. And while the world mourned, the famous family's tragic loss became the subject of a media feeding frenzy, complete with elaborate hoaxes, confessions, and investigations that stained the reputation and careers of many prominent people. Even today, more than 6 decades after the ordeal, there are lingering doubts as to Bruno Hauptmann's guilt. Some contend the German hero of World War I might have been set up. Others say the Lindbergh child was not murdered at all, that the body found in the grave was a plant, part of a bizarre scheme hatched by organized crime lord Al Capone to gain freedom from an Atlanta penitentiary. In 1980, a 52-year-old longshoreman from New York came forward and told police he was the missing Lindbergh heir. Harold Olson claimed that the body buried in the shallow grave near the Lindbergh home had been put there by operatives working for Capone. The body the police found was not that of the Lindbergh baby, Olson told reporters. It was badly decomposed, making positive identification a near impossibility, and the whole thing was done very quickly. The accused kidnapper and killer, Hotman, was perfectly innocent, Olson said. He had nothing to do with the actual killing. Had police not been in such a hurry to solve the case, Olson added, they would have noticed numerous physical differences between the real Lindbergh baby and the child found in the grave. For one thing, he said, the dead baby's body was 4 inches too long, a fact that the police knew but chose to ignore. Why didn't the grieving parents notice the physical difference? Lindy wanted to get the thing over with and to save his wife's sanity, Olson explained. He also wanted to shut out Capone's interest. According to Olson, the famed Chicago gangster had told Lindbergh that he knew the whereabouts of the missing baby and would organize his relief in exchange for freedom. The crime boss was desperate to avoid being sent to Alcatraz, Olson noted, where he was to serve the remainder of his life sentence. But Lindy refused to go along, said Olson, who described the famous aviator as a super patriot and stiff upper-lip gentleman of the old school, who so despised the mob that he would rather sacrifice his own son than have Capone released from prison. But it was still in the interest of the Chicago mob to keep the real Lindbergh child alive, Olson went on. As long as they could produce the boy, they didn't have to fear a murder rap. Besides, the mob always plans for the future. The child might be a valuable pawn worth playing at a later date. A Capone operative arranged for the real Lindbergh baby to be raised by his brother and wife in Connecticut. They changed the child's name and birthday, but could not alter the physical scars and deformities. Apart from a skull indentation over the left eye and deformed toes, a result of rickets, Olson said that Lindbergh's other son, John, noticed that Olson had birthmarks that matched those of his brother. For what it's now worth, I am the missing Lindbergh baby, Olson said. For years following the kidnapping, a number of private investigators stepped forth to cash in on the international hoopla surrounding the case. One such man was Morris Rosner, a former government agent who declared, "We have established beyond doubt that the baby is alive and will be restored to his parents." But the cruelest hoax involving John Hughes Curtis, president of the Curtis Boat Building Corporation of Norfolk, Virginia, Curtis, who claimed to be the real spokesman for the kidnap gang, organized a committee of concerned Norfolk citizens to serve as a liaison between Lindbergh and the kidnappers. Curtis informed Lindbergh that the gang required a good faith deposit of $25,000. The money would be held in the hands of the committee until the baby was delivered safe and sound into our hands. About this time, Lindbergh received the baby's sleeping suit, proof that the kidnappers did in fact possess the child. As for his part, Curtis was prepared to offer additional evidence that the baby was still alive. According to Curtis, the boy was being held on a schooner off the coast of Cape May, New Jersey. Lindbergh spent several weary weeks searching the Atlantic waters for his son, but found no trace of the ship supposedly commanded by Captain Dynamite. I wonder if he's related to Napoleon. The discovery of the baby's body resulting in a startling admission by Curtis that he had made the whole story up. Amid the drama, Violet Sharp, the maid who had been in charge of the infant at the time he was kidnapped, committed suicide. She had been linked to the kidnapping by sensational newspaper claims that there was an inside connection. The affair reached its climax when the short, stocky Bruno Hauptmann, a carpenter by trade, was brought to trial in Flemington, New Jersey. Tens of thousands of spectators shouting, "Burn the Dutchman!" surrounded the courthouse, while throngs of curiosity seekers looking for souvenirs combed the woods where the baby's body was found. After the trial, the Lindberghs fled to England to escape the notoriety surrounding the case and to put their lives back together. That was a really sad story. I couldn't even imagine going through that. Oh, that's awesome. So Tiny Squish in YouTube said, my grandpa read 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea to me when I was little. He was a Navy vet. He had me intrigued by the mysteries of the ocean at a very young age. That's super sweet. My grandpa was a squid too, but he never read me that. But it's a very good story. The Wild Boy of Nuremberg. Someone wants to. There was something strange about the sad-eyed boy who limped into the village of Nuremberg, Germany, on the morning of May 26, 1828. Some people thought he looked wild, like an animal, and stayed clear of him as he made his way slowly through the heart of town, past bread shops and cafes, where the aroma of fresh-baked cakes and sausages lingered heavily in the early morning air. His clothes were old and ragged, and it was clear from the thick calluses on his feet that he was accustomed to shoes or boots. He appeared to be about 16 years old, thin, stoop-shouldered, and pockmarked. His unwashed hair was long and stringy, and full of lice. He said his name was Caspar Hauser, but those were all the words that he could or would utter. He carried no identification, but he did have 2 unsigned letters in his pocket. One dated October 1812 and supposedly written by his mother to someone who was to take care of him, stated that he had been kept isolated from infancy. The second letter was from a poor laborer who said the child's name was Caspar and his father, now dead, had been a cavalry officer. But Caspar had no knowledge of his family or where he came from. When asked by a police officer how he got into town, he pointed to his feet, then into the woods. It was obvious by his manner and smell he had spent a lot of time wandering the woods. A group of concerned citizens took charge of the boy, gave him a bath and food and a place to sleep. As the days passed, the boy would sit for hours in a corner staring at the wall. He would eat and drink only bread and water. He refused to talk to anyone, except for a kind woman who brought him food and helped him with a bath. News of the strange boy traveled fast. Newspapers wrote of the wild boy of Nuremberg, as if Caspar was half boy, half animal. In many ways, it seemed like he had been dropped onto the earth from another world. The general consensus was that he was some kind of lost soul of nature, known only to God. One report called him a child of the forest, perhaps reared by wolves or bears. When asked about his past, the only thing the boy would say was that he remembered being raised in a dark room so small that he had been unable to stand. He never saw who kept him, he said, never saw a smile or felt the arms of a human being around his neck. Then one day he said he was drugged and taken away. The next thing he knew, he was in the woods near Nuremberg. He finally wandered onto a road, which he followed into town where he was found. It was rumored that Caspar was the illegitimate son of some important person. There was endless speculation as to who that important person might be, perhaps some rich noble or famous celebrity, even a member of the royal family. In the meantime, Caspar Hauser learned to read, write, and draw, but he could never really overcome the dreadful damage done by his years of imprisonment. Years later, a wealthy Englishman who had befriended Caspar moved him to the small town of Ansbach, where he again became the center of attention, but here too his fame was temporary. On December 14, 1833, Caspar Hauser returned from a walk in the park dripping blood. He said a tall man in a black coat had stabbed him, and he mumbled something about a purse. In the park, police found a silk purse with an enigmatic more inside, saying the attacker's name was MLO, but not much else. Unfortunately, it had snowed that morning, and the only footprints found at the crime scene were Casper's. The wound proved more serious than first believed. He died 3 days later. His final words were, "I didn't do it to myself." When news of his death was published in newspapers, readers angrily demanded a full investigation, but strange circumstances surrounding Caspar Hauser's death remains today as mysterious as his own baffling life.
Mom, so can I see the paint?
No, you can't, because I'm doing...
Looks like.
These are those elm beetles.
I mean, like, what kind of looks like? Are they like?
I don't know, son.
Cause I saw a black bug, like tiny, like a ball, and it was crawling on mine and Lily's bed.
Yeah, we got all kinds of beetles, gnats, all kinds of stuff going on, especially when growing those plants in the living room. You need to go right now, and do not come back in here. I will see you when I come out. And I'm serious. You guys know better. Can you read? Can you read that sign? Son, this is like the 5th time. These kids know. There's a sign on the door. Oh, sorry about that. So this one is called Pied Piper of Hamelin. One of the most popular tourist destinations in northern Germany is the small town of Hamelin, a quaint community of timbered houses, cobblestone squares, and Renaissance palaces, overlooking the winding Weser River in Lower Saxony. For centuries, its biggest draw has been the so-called Ratcheter's House, a brooding, steep, gabled structure on Old Town where the Pied Piper reputedly stayed when he arrived in 1284 to rid the town of rats. Thanks to the poet Robert Browning and Grimm's fairy tales, every schoolchild knows the story. A mysterious young stranger, wearing a ragged, multicolored cloak, wanders into town one night and, for a fee of 1,000 florins, offers to lure the unwanted pests into the river by playing his pipe. The mayor and town council are only too happy to agree, but refuse to pay up the next day when the rat catcher comes to collect. Playing a tune on a flute is not worth 1,000 florins, so get out of Hamelin, the mayor is said to have shouted. Enraged, the piper returned the following Sunday while the grown-ups were at church and began to play a different tune. This time, it was the children who ran into the street, charmed by the notes. They danced away with the piper to nearby Koppelberg Mountain, where an enormous cavern opened and swallowed them. They were never seen again. Until the 19th century, 2 crosses stood on the mountain to mark the spot where the 130 children were last seen. Some researchers believe the story of the Pied Piper, immortalized in song and literature by Browning and the Brothers Grimm, might be more than a fairy tale. Rats were a big problem in medieval Europe, just as the legend suggests, and something terrible did happen to the children of Hamelin, a wealthy trade center that traces its origins back to 851, when it was built as a Benedict monastery. Just what that was, no one can say. But for centuries, it was commonly believed that the children disappeared in the side of the mountains, just as the old legends allege. Others thought they joined a group of crusaders marching off to the Holy Land and never returned. One modern theory holds that they were slaughtered at the Battle of Sedmund, a local feud in 1260, yet another seriously considered possibility suggests that the children died of bubonic plague. the Black Death that raged across Europe during the 12th and 13th centuries. Memories of another sickness must also be buried in the legend. The children in the story are described as dancing away to their deaths. According to some, this might well be a symbolic description of victims of St. Vitus dance, or chorea, a disorder of the nervous system characterized by irregular jerking movements. Music played on a pipe was believed to calm the uncontrollable muscle spasms the victims of the disease had endured. It is ironic that in the story only 2 children are left behind, both crippled and unable to keep up with the others. The legend of the Pied Piper of Hamelin, the Hamelschen Kinder, as the Germans say, is certainly not the first, nor is it the only one of its kind. Remarkably similar tales of pipers who spirit away children figure in folklore of Europe and the Middle East. In the northern German region of Brandenburg, it was a fiddler who stole children. A bagpiper was the culprit in the Harz Mountains, while another piper led a group of laughing, dancing children away from Lorch, a village on the Rhine in the 13th century. Unlike most of the tales, however, the Hamelin tragedy gives precise dates, names, and places. Were the doomed children lured away by promises of new toys and riches? Some historians suggest that the rat catcher of yore had been actually hired by some foreign sovereign to recruit settlers for new colonies in Eastern Europe. One popular version of the story, for example, has the charmed children walking through a tunnel all the way to Transylvania. Most recently, Professor Jürgen Adolf, or Udolf, a linguist from Göttingen, was gathering evidence that he thinks supports the colonization theory. By comparing place names and personal names of different regions, he claims that the youngsters were brought to the regions of Prignitz and Uckermark, now located in the state of Brandenburg, northeast of Berlin. Other modern scholars say the children were taken to Moravia, the eastern part of the modern Czech Republic. The most likely explanation is that the tale of the Pied Piper is a strange amalgam of truth and myth. The original Pied Piper story must have taken on increased significance for the people of Hamelin as more children were lost to the Black Plague, the Crusades, forced colonization, or some other cause. Yeah, that's what I was saying when I read that. I was like, Napoleon Dynamite? Not even God can sink this mighty ship. She was the greatest ship ever built, and supposedly the safest, according to William Peary, president of Harland and Wolff, the Belfast firm that constructed the colossal 11-story luxury liner known to history as the RMS Titanic. A double bottom hull and 16 watertight compartments made the floating palace virtually unsinkable. Its builders promised, "Not even God can sink this mighty ship," Peary boasted only days before the Titanic, crowded with 2,220 passengers, including 325 of the world's richest people, set sail from Southampton, England to New York City on her maiden voyage. But shortly before midnight on April 14, 1912, the unsinkable ship of dreams, the largest movable object ever made by man, struck an iceberg some 400 miles south of Newfoundland and sank, taking 1,513 passengers and crew with her to the bottom of the freezing sea. Ever since, experts have been trying to figure out what caused the greatest maritime disaster in the world history. All evidence points to human error. The ship was simply traveling too fast in the dark through iceberg-choked waters. At least 7 messages had been sent, warning the Titanic about the danger of icebergs. By the time icebergs were spotted, it was too late to take evasive action. The doomed ship slammed side first into a massive mountain of ice, splitting her open like a tin can and allowing millions of gallons of Atlantic Ocean to come pouring in below deck. Groaning and heaving, the massive $7.5 million vessel, nicknamed the Millionaire Special, sank within 3 hours. Hundreds of passengers and crewmen fortunate found a lifeboat, froze to death, awaiting rescue. Ironically, less than 20 miles away, a would-be rescue ship named the Californian was steaming through the dark. Had her radio operator not been asleep, or had the Titanic been able to send up proper flares, crewmen on the Californian might have been able to rush to her aid. I also heard just the other day on a video that I was watching that they did send up a couple to a few flares, and there was a ship nearby, but they didn't think it was rescue flares. They thought it was like some sort of fireworks or whatnot. So that was pretty sad. They could have saved everybody, but they didn't. As news of the tragedy swept around the world, legends sprang up around the night's events, those who lived and those who died. Newspaper stories told of heroes and heroines like Molly Brown, the gallant way in which many gave up places on the limited number of lifeboats so that others could survive. Stories were also told about how second and third class steerage passengers crammed below deck drowned like rats because the ship's crew neglected to help them escape. John Jacob Astor, worth more than $100 million and the richest man on board, supposedly asked permission to go in a lifeboat with his wife. He was told, "No men are allowed in the boats until the women are loaded first." The boat left only 2/3 full. Another legend, probably false, told how the ship's band kept playing until the ship vanished beneath the waves. One man, identified as Ben Guggenheim, supposedly exchanged his life belt for a sweater, proclaiming, "If I am to die, I wish to die like a gentleman." The memory of that horrible night lives on in the dreams and nightmares of those who survived. One woman, Eva Hart, said, "The sound of people drowning is something I cannot describe to you, and neither can anyone else. It is the most dreadful sound, and then there is dreadful silence that follows it." Watching the ship go down, one male passenger described it as a surrealistic death glide, while another, Second Officer Lightoller, said, "Slowly she reared up on end until at last she was absolutely perpendicular. Then quite silently, but quicker and quicker, she seemed to glide away and disappear." Could the disaster have been avoided? Some investigators say yes. Had authorities heeded a flood of paranormal premonitions that surfaced before the tragedy, acclaimed English director John Black was one of many people who warned about the danger after several dreams in which he saw a large ship sinking and hundreds of people being drowned. Ian Stevenson, a well-known professor of parapsychology at the University of Virginia, said the sinking of the Titanic was accompanied by more paranormal experiences than any other sea disaster on record. He doesn't know why, but he theorizes that the shock of the event itself might have been a contributing factor. The ghostly remains of the Titanic, forever shrouded in drifting clouds of sediment and icy currents, now lies serenely in her watery tomb. It's not warm, it's very cold. 4,000 feet below the surface, where she vanished almost 9 decades ago. And now, how many is it? Like 5 more people are down there now? It's very sad. Yeah, and this one I got confused with the first story, the Hindenburg and the Hindenburgs. Maybe it was a premonition. Just kidding. So on that note, you guys, we are going to go to our first music break. On this break, we have Miss Mia Savage, who hails originally from Phoenix, Arizona. She does live here in Bayfield part of the year, not yet this year. She's been gone for a very long time, and I miss her very much. She's my paranormal buddy, my ghost hunting buddy, my best friend, all around. She's just amazing. But she's kind of like my own little personal Trent Reznor. That's what I like to compare her to, because she does all of the music on her own, does all the instruments, does the singing, everything. She's going to be singing Your Skeleton, Arne Reality, Let Me Be Your Home, and Lemurian Crypto. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this music break. Welcome back, and thanks so much for hanging out with me tonight on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. We have been partaking in this book. It's been an awesome book. The World's 100 Greatest Mysteries, Strange Secrets of the Past Revealed. This is by Randall Floyd. It's been super epic. We were talking in the chat room about the flares and such. Like, the Titanic did put out flares. There was a ship nearby. They thought it was just, fireworks and trying to amuse the guests as they're going slowly through this corridor of glaciers and such. And yeah. Very sad. Very sad indeed. Just making sure everything's on. Everything's bouncing. Looking good. Looking good. Shall we continue? So for the second hour, we will be continuing this book. And then for the third hour, we're going to watch a creepy video together. And it's a pretty good one. Pretty good. The Hindenburg Disaster. A rusty iron weather vane fluttering high above a sea of scrubby weeds and cracked asphalt marks the spot where one of the most famous disasters in aviation history occurred more than 6 decades ago. It was here on the evening of May 6, 1937, that thousands of excited spectators had gathered on a grassy airfield outside Lakehurst Naval Air Station, New Jersey, to watch the arrival of an airborne legend, the German airship Hindenburg. The monstrous aircraft, built by Germany's Zeppelin Company, was the biggest in the world, more than 3 football fields long and only a few yards shorter than Cunard's great ocean liner, the Queen Mary. Powered by several massive engines and kept aloft by millions of cubic feet of highly flammable hydrogen, the Hindenburg was supposed to be the safest and most luxurious airship in the world. More than 50 passengers were crowded aboard the Silver Leviathan that afternoon as the huge ship floated slowly into view, plunging the airfield below into deep shadow. Many on the ground could make out the faces of men and women leaning out the windows smiling and waving handkerchiefs. 200 feet below, they marveled at the giant airship, which boasted a dining room 50 feet long, mirrored lounges, a writing room, bar, and a hydrogen-proof smoking room. The Hindenburg was not only luxurious, it was fast, with a range of 11,000 miles and a cruising speed of 84 miles an hour. It had broken a transatlantic record the previous year. At precisely 7 p.m., ground crewmen rushed forward to grab mooring lines. Amid the roar of engines and cheering spectators, photographers, and reporters shoved through the crowd for a close view of the slowly descending aircraft. 25 minutes later, as cameras clicked and rolled, someone noticed a spark near the tail fin. It looked like a mushroom-shaped flower bursting speedily into bloom, commented one officer on the ground. The flames spread quickly, devouring the giant red swastika painted on the rear of the plane. Within seconds, the beautiful airship burst into flames and crashed, killing 36 passengers and crew. Miraculously, 61 people aboard the doomed aircraft survived by jumping to the ground. Broadcaster Herb Morrison was on hand to capture the fiery moment of infamy. "It's burst into flame. It's burning. It is falling on the mooring mast and all the folks This is one of the worst catastrophes in the world. Oh, it's 400 or 500 feet into the sky. It's a terrific crash, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, the humanity and all the passengers." I know that's a famous line that people use all the time. Oh, the humanity. What exactly do you mean by that? Maybe the loss of humanity? Investigators, including the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the German Gestapo, quickly agreed that hydrogen was the culprit. Hydrogen was the flammable lifting gas used by all the world's airships except those of the United States, the only nation with large natural reserves of helium, a non-flammable gas. Other people, however, weren't so sure. A few suspected sabotage. stemming from the international crisis brought on by Adolf Hitler's phenomenal rise to power only a few years before. But to most people, the Hindenburg disaster seemed simply enough. The ship was filled with more than 7 million cubic feet of hydrogen. It also carried a heavy load of diesel fuel, and some kind of ignition converted all that into an inferno. But a recent study by 2 American experts has disclosed that hydrogen may not have been the primary cause of the fire. Addison Bain, former head of NASA's hydrogen program, and former space shuttle contractor Richard G. Vaughan, reached a surprising conclusion. The outer fabric stretched over the Hindenburg's frame, and especially the lacquer dope used to smooth and waterproof it, may have been a far more dangerous fire hazard than the hydrogen inside the ship's ruberized internal gas cells. In fact, Bain said, the recipe for airship dope was about as flammable as you can get. The scientists believe that a static electrical charge ignited the ship's canvas cover. The skin, Bain said, burned as fast and as violently as one of NASA's rockets, freeing the hydrogen from inside. Files examine that the Zeppelin archive in Friedrichshafen, Germany, seem to corroborate the American scientist's theory. A note written by an electrical engineer on June 28, 1937 said, the actual cause of the fire was the extreme flammability of the covering material brought about by discharges of an electrostatic nature. The moment observers on the ground saw the tongue of flame licking the tail fin, they knew the mighty ship was doomed, as it fell crashing tail first onto the field. It splintered, then exploded into a huge fireball. Miraculously, many that survived the initial impact to crawl and run screaming from the inferno, some on fire. Those who witnessed the horrifying skeptical were amazed that more people on board and on the ground did not perish. Check this, it sounds really loud. Really loud in my earballs. Yeah, it is a bit loud, isn't it? Let's turn that down a little bit more. Started off quiet, but ended up loud. I need an audio engineer. Alright, that should be better. Let me know if it's not. The Curse of the Hope Diamond. Deep within a carefully guarded vault inside the Smithsonian Institution lies the Hope Diamond, a glittering, heart-shaped stone whose impassive beauty has been linked to madness, despair, and the deaths of more than 20 people. For more than 3 centuries, kings, paupers, thieves, and courtesans have gazed upon the stone's shimmering opulence and been driven to doom. According to legend, the diamond's ill-fated history began when it was stolen from the forehead of an Indian idol worshipped by followers of Rama Sita. The god supposedly placed a curse on the stone, ensuring that tragedy would befall anyone who owned or wore it. Its first victim was the Hindu priest who stole it, tortured to death by temple authorities. In 1642, the cursed stone fell into the hands of a French trader-smuggler, Jean-Baptiste Tavernier, who made enough money from selling it to buy a title and estate. Tavernier was later forced to sell his estate and everything he owned to pay his son's gambling debts. The distraught trader then headed back to India to remake his fortune and was torn to death by a pack of wild dogs. That's pretty bad. Yeah, I wouldn't wear that, I don't think. The gem reappeared in the possession of the French King Louis the, I'm going to say 14th? Or is that the 9th? I think it's 14th. Yes, that's the 14th. Who had it cut from its original 112.4 carats down to 67.5 carats. Nicolas Foucault a government official who borrowed it for a state ball, was convicted in 1665 of embezzlement and imprisoned for the rest of his life. Ignorant of the curse that they had added to their crown jewels, several more members of the French royal family were to die. The Princess de Lamballe, who wore it regularly, was beaten to death by a mob. The Countess de Berry, one of Louis XV's mistresses, supposedly wore the stone shortly before she was executed. Oh my gosh, why do they keep throwing these Roman numerals at me? I'm getting so agitated I can't even say Roman correctly. Come on, guys, be nice to me. I'm gonna say Louis the 6th? Or is it 16th? I think it's 16th. And his queen, Marie Antoinette. Is that right? Who had inherited the glittering heirloom, died on the guillotine. Then, in 1792, while post-revolutionary Paris was still in turmoil, the diamond vanished again, this time for 40 years. The gap left plenty of room for speculation. A French jeweler, Jacques Sellot, is said to have gloated over its beauty until he went insane and killed himself. A Russian prince, Ivan Karantovsky, gave it to his Persian mistress, a Foyers Bergère dancer named Mademoiselle Ladru, then shot her dead and was later murdered himself. Even Catherine the Great of Russia is believed to have worn the stone before she died of apoplexy. I don't even know what that is, but it sounds dreadful. Later, a Dutch diamond cutter sheared the stone down to its present weight of 44.5 grams, or carats. Okay. What's the ratio between carats and grams? Nope, that's carats. Originally 112.4 carats, now down to... What did Stingy do again? Where's it at? It was just right here. 44.5. Do the math. That's a lot. What the hell? What is wrong with this woman? Maybe she made a ring or earrings out of the shavings or something? I have no idea. But that's insane. When the cutter's son, when the cutter's son stole it from him, the cutter committed suicide. Oh no. The stone continued to bounce from hand to bloody hand across Europe, finally landing in the hands of Henry Thomas Hope, a wealthy Irish banker who bought it for $150,000 and gave the diamond its modern name. His grandson later died penniless. In 1901, a jeweler bought the diamond, then went bankrupt. Another jeweler then purchased it, but he is said to have gone mad before killing himself. The diamond's next owner was a dissolute Russian nobleman who shot his showgirl lover while she was on stage and was reportedly stabbed to death by a group of Russian revolutionaries. Don't touch it. Throw it in the ocean like that smart old lady did. The next owner was a Greek jeweler who fell off a cliff. Jeez, oh Pete. Okay, in 1908, the Kurdish Sultan Abdul Hamid bought the stone for $400,000. He gave it to his wife Subaya, then stabbed her. A year later, he lost his throne. Y'all's crazy. Y'all don't be messing with the stone. What the heck? The Jinx jewel moved up to the United States, where it was bought for $154,000 by business tycoon Edward B. McLean in 1911. Shortly after purchasing the diamond, McLean's mother died. So did two of the servants in the McLean household. Edward McLean himself seems to have been rather wary of the gem, but wife Evelyn McLean loved it and haughtily dismissed all the notions of a curse. But tragedy continued to stalk the McLean family. The couple's 10-year-old son, Vincent, was struck down by a car and killed. The couple later divorced, then Mr. McLean set sail on the Titanic, never to return. Come on, guys, help me out here. Only American jeweler Harry Winston, who bought the blue stone from the heirs of the McLean family, escaped the rays of doom, perhaps by giving it away to the Smithsonian. Now that's a smart move. Don't give them your dinosaur bones or your giant bones or Egyptian artifacts or indigenous people artifacts, but give them the stone. They really should hold on to that for you. That would be a very good idea. In 1990, socialite Georgette Mossbacher, I don't know, I think it's Mossbacher, wore the fabulous Hope Diamond to publicize a $1 million gift to the Smithsonian Museum, where it is frequently displayed. Mrs. Mossbacher was the first person to wear the glittering walnut-sized diamond and its diamond-studded necklace, valued at more than $100 million, publicly since its bequest in 1958 by Winston. The rare deep blue diamond, believed to have been formed deep below the Earth's crust 1 billion years ago, was mined in India more than 3 centuries ago. Today it is kept in a museum vault behind inch-thick glass, guarded around the clock by police, dogs, and sophisticated electronic devices. In spite of the stone's bloody history, Paul E. de Saltes, retired curator in charge of the National Collection of Gems at the museum, has declared that the curse is nothing more than a carefully nurtured fairy tale. You should take it home and find out. Just kidding, don't do that. Tens of thousands of visitors brave the curse each year to come to the museum and see the legendary stone with their own eyes. Proof, say some, of the Hope Diamond's mystical power. Now, I'm pretty sure you're safe unless you wear it or own it, so go check it out, but don't touch it. Tunguska explosion. Early on the morning of June 30th, 1908, a mysterious explosion split the dark skies over a remote region of central Siberia. The blast, centered near Tunguska, about 2,200 miles east of Moscow, could be heard more than 600 miles away, shattering windows and roofs and sparking forest fires that raged for weeks. Seismographs as far away as Washington State picked up the impact. Excuse me. Investigators say the blast was 1,000 times stronger than the atomic bomb dropped over Hiroshima, and much more powerful than the Mount St. Helens eruption in 1980. Resulting shockwaves leveled thousands of acres of trees and wiped out vast herds of reindeer. Farmers and herders, asleep in their huts, were blown into the air and knocked unconscious. So they were unconscious, then they were conscious, then they were unconscious again. Because the object apparently exploded in the atmosphere instead of hitting the ground, it left no crater. Directly below the blast, tree branches were stripped, leaving skeletal-like trunks standing straight up. Fanning out beyond 3 miles, however, trees were blown over like matchsticks, their charred tops pointed away from the blast. Witnesses in the town of Kirinsk and other nearby cities said they saw a pillar of fire arching across the sky moments before the explosion occurred. "I saw a flying star," one villager reported. "Its tail disappeared into the air." Another said a ball of fire came down obliquely. A few minutes later, we heard a deafening crash like peals of thunder, followed by 8 loud bangs like gunshots. A second eyewitness told interviewers the whole northern part of the sky appeared covered with fire. "I felt a great heat, as if my shirt had caught fire. At that moment there was a bang in the sky and a mighty crash. The crash was followed by a noise like stones falling from the sky, or guns firing." I wonder if he got like a flash sunburn. That'd be bad, but I could just imagine if you felt that like rush of heat all of a sudden, if you got like a flash sunburn on your face. I don't know, intruding thoughts. Intrusive thoughts. Another witness said, "I saw the sky in the north open to the ground and fire poured out. The fire was brighter than the sun. We were terrified. But the sky closed again, and immediately afterward, bangs like gunshots were heard. More than 90 years later, the world still wonders what powerful force struck Siberia that fateful morning, charring vast regions of wilderness and incinerating wildlife for miles around. Was it a meteorite or a part of a flaming comet that plowed into the stony Tunguska River region, north of Lake Baikal? Or was it something else?" Some investigators have theorized that only an impact with a black hole or mass of antimatter could have caused damage on such a colossal scale. Serious suggestions have been made that a damaged spaceship might have crashed into Siberia, triggering some kind of nuclear explosion. I don't know, that's where I'm leaning, because, I don't know, just evidence of past meteorites or asteroids or whatnot, and yeah, it doesn't do that. But a spaceship about to crash and maybe like it gets to a certain flash point that it just once on impact, because the crater's really not that big, it's just kind of like a little tiny divot, and then it has the trees, and then the trees laying down. Is so weird. A very weird effect. American physicist Thomas Ahrens of John O'Keefe think the culprit was an ice-rich comet, in essence, a giant snowball that did the damage. Their comet hypothesis seems reasonable to many researchers, but not all. Leonid Kulik, a Russian astronomer, thinks it was a large meteorite that lighted the skies over Siberia before exploding into fragments that rained down on Earth from about 200 miles. Since no large solid object was found in the ground, nor has an impact crater been located, Dr. Kulik theorized that the meteorite was destroyed upon contact with the atmosphere. Scientists know that space is filled with huge chunks of rock, asteroid fragments left from the birth of the solar system billions of years ago. These frozen rocks continue to circle the sun in elliptical orbits, but occasionally stray off course and intersect with other heavenly bodies, including Earth. One such strike occurred in Arizona about 20,000 years ago, leaving the 2-mile-wide Arizona meteor crater. Another giant asteroid is believed to have hit Earth around 65 million years ago, ending the reign of the dinosaurs. As recently as 1972, a 1,000-ton object barely missed the Earth on a trajectory that skipped over the Grand Tetons in Wyoming. The truth is, thousands of tiny rocks from the far reaches of space rain down on Earth every day. Most burn up upon striking the atmosphere or fall harmlessly into the sea. Grain-sized stones can be seen at night as shooting stars, but some larger ones have landed on cars and houses. Some scientists who keep track of such celestial events think it's only a matter of time before a really big asteroid scores a direct hit. Such a scenario would be catastrophic, especially should Ground Zero be heavily populated of an area. A blast with the energy yield of the Siberian explosion, estimated to be the equivalent of 3 or 30 megatons of TNT, would have wiped out all of New York City and caused widespread destruction in neighboring Connecticut and New Jersey, according to Dr. Kulik. If this meteorite had fallen on central Belgium, there would have been no living creature left in the whole country, he said. Had it fallen in London, none left alive south of Manchester or east of Bristol. In 1993, a scientific team from NASA and the University of Wisconsin claimed that a stormy asteroid less than 100 feet in diameter caused the Siberian explosion. Imagine what would happen if one of these roving monsters decided to drop in during rush hour. one scientist quipped. It would be like Sodom and Gomorrah. A whole lot of fire and brimstone and nowhere to hide. And other things. We've had other, I want to call them meteorites, because asteroids are above a certain size and above us. They don't really hit, they just go around. But meteors or meteorites come through the atmosphere and turn into different colors depending on what kind of metals or whatnot are in there. But yeah, we've had some that have come so close to hitting us that it just, barely strafed our atmosphere, or came into our atmosphere, and perhaps blew up somewhere down the road, but it was not direct impact. But it still caused so much damage. It was pretty intense. I believe it was in Russia or Germany or something like that was the most recent one. I don't know, there's so many these days, it's hard to keep track. And now they're tracking one that's pretty big. I don't know, to me it's pretty big. Maybe not to you guys, but it's circling and it's very, very close to us. So hopefully it just keeps circling and shoots off somewhere. Hopefully it decides to leave us alone, because that would be for the greater good, I think. Bavaria's Mad King. Whenever Ludwig felt particularly melancholy, he'd hop onto a horse and ride out into the woods, encircling his fairy tale castle in Bavaria. Alone in the drifting mists and dark forests, he'd pretend he lived in another world, the mythological world of Tannhauser, Parzival, the Swan Knights, and other romantic legends of old. But Bavaria's tortured young monarch, the moody, wildly eccentric Swan King, was too busy to withdraw permanently into illusion and fantasy. As long as there were more castles to build, more Germanic operas and art projects to underwrite, he had to remain alive and alert, ever tuned to the artistic desires and needs of his talented and temperamental friend, composer Richard Wagner. Ignoring wars and the palace intrigue raging all around him, King Ludwig dedicated his life and royal treasury to building more castles. Neuschwanstein, Herrenchiemsee, and Linderhof, among others. Each of these glittering, dreamlike creations represented a world that for others existed only in history books, mixing the Teutonic, Byzantine, French, Bavarian Baroque, and Oriental styles of architectures. Then one day they came for him, commissioners empowered by the Bavarian government, to take away his throne, to put an end to the wild fantasies that had almost bankrupted the realm. That morning, June 12, 1886, they declared the 41-year-old king to be legally insane, and sent him away to a lakeside retreat near Munich. 3 days later, they found his body floating in the cold waters of Lake Starnberg. The Swan King was dead, along with the psychiatrist who had authorized his removal. Today, more than a century later, the death of Bavaria's Mad King remains one of Germany's greatest unsolved mysteries. Some 5,000 books, plays, films, poems, and newspaper and magazine articles have sought to shed light on the deposed monarch's tragic fate. Was he murdered? Did he kill himself in a fit of rage? Or, as some scholars allege, was the king thrown into the lake by a jilted homosexual lover? What? The truth is, nobody knows for sure. According to Dietrich Schmidt, a lawyer from Fussen, a picturesque village in the Alps, nestled in the shadows of Neuschwanstein. Some old wags like to argue that he never died but was locked up in a dungeon somewhere for safekeeping, or perhaps as punishment, nobody seems to know which. Most historians insist that Ludwig committed suicide, but a growing number of scholars figure he was murdered, a victim of palace intrigue. Ludwig's lavish spending habits and bizarre lifestyle made him lots of enemies, both in and out of the government, said German historian Jürgen Bromberg. There were a number of people who realized he was spinning the government into bankruptcy and would have paid good money to take him out. Part of that resentment stemmed from King Ludwig's insatiable taste for huge, expansive castles, such as Neuschwanstein, a soaring 80-room castle complete with pinnacles, towers, and wooden drawbridge. Walt Disney was so taken with the edifice that he used it as the model for the castle of the Magic Kingdom at Disneyland. Is that Sleeping Beauty's castle, I believe? It's not Cinderella's. King Ludwig was only 18 when he ascended to the Bavarian throne in 1864. A patron of music, he became intimately acquainted with Richard Wagner, the great operatic composer whose creativity and extravagant lifestyle were largely underwritten by the king. King Ludwig is not known to have had any romantic relationships with women, a fact that gave rise to rumors of homosexuality. Soon after taking the throne, however, he became engaged to his cousin, Sophie, an Austrian princess, but did not go through with the wedding. As the years passed, King Ludwig withdrew into melancholy solitude, sleeping during the day and spending his nights listening to private recitations of Schiller's poetry, or Wagner's Titanic operas about Germanic gods and heroes. He frequently took moonlight rides through the snow-covered forests, surrounding his lonely estate in a sleigh decorated with gilded cherubs. Ludwig's wildly eccentric behavior probably stemmed from an abusive childhood, say some historians. The oldest son of King Maximilian II, 1811 to 1864, of Bavaria, and Marie of Prussia, 1825 to 1889. The crown prince was raised in a militaristic tradition that ruthlessly suppressed artistic impulses. To escape the beatings and regimentation, he daydreamed and fantasized about the old Germanic legends. As a young child, he suffered hallucinations and frequently heard imaginary voices as he built castles with toy blocks. The voices and the fantasies continued as he grew into manhood and ascended to the throne upon his father's death on March 10, 1864. Because of his youth and lack of experience, many Bavarian politicians expected Ludwig to be pliable and easily impressed. Instead, the proud young monarch ruled as he saw fit, neglecting the despised military and pompously issuing bewildering proclamations and orders. There was something dark in him, noted Minister of Justice Eduard von Bomhard. That's quite a name. He was mentally gifted in the highest degree, but the contents of his mind were stored in a totally disordered fashion. Was the king mad? Some say yes, others no, especially his common subjects and modern admirers, who continue to honor him each year with festivals and pageants in Oktoberfest, Germany's most popular celebration. The king was no madman, only an eccentric living in a world of dreams, said Austria's Empress Elizabeth. Some speculate that he was murdered because he planned to challenge his removal from power. Others say he committed suicide after killing his alleged lover, the same psychiatrist who had declared him insane. The murder and suicide explanation seems the correct one, said historian Ernest Newman, but it surely proves not the king's madness, but his complete sanity. He knew that, for him, life was over, since he had been betrayed, declared mad, and imprisoned. Let's see how long this one... The money pit! Yeah, I think we can get through this in time. Alright, this one's called the money pit. For more than 200 years, visitors to a small windswept island of Nova Scotia have searched for a treasure said to be worth millions. I've watched this show. I love the History Channel. Some say the loot is buried in a water-filled pit dug by notorious pirate Captain William Kidd. Others suggest it might have belonged to the Vikings or some other group of pre-Columbian explorers, perhaps even Egyptians or survivors from the lost continent of Atlantis. One theory holds that the fabled treasure was once the property of Spanish conquistadors, who had stolen it from the civilizations of Central and South America. Another suggests that agents working for the King of England buried the fortune, then sailed away and forgot about it. Whatever its origins, the quest to find the lost treasure has cost numerous lives and vast personal fortunes. The hunt began in 1765 when a 16-year-old boy paddled over from the little Nova Scotian town of Chester to set game traps on uninhabited Oak Island, a small peanut-shaped isle in Mahone Bay. In a clearing at one end of the island, he found an old ship's tackle block dangling over a curious clay chamber about 12 feet wide. Undeterred by tales of hauntings and fired by legends of pirate treasure, young Daniel McGinnis recruited two friends, Anthony Vaughan and John Smith, to help him dig up the loot. After months of backbreaking work, all they found was a 13-foot wide circular shaft dug through flinty clay, with thick oak platforms at 10, 20, and 300 feet. The dispirited boys soon abandoned their project, but never forgot about the treasure. In 1804, they told Simeon Linz, a wealthy Nova Scotia doctor, about their discovery on Oak Island. Dr. Linz, who was familiar with old legends about buried pirate loot, quickly formed the first treasure company. Within days, teams of workers armed with shovels and pickaxes descended on the island. The diggers, led by Daniel McGinnis and his two friends, eventually broke through 8 oak platforms, 3 of which were sealed with ship's putty and coconut fiber. Below that, much to Dr. Lin's dismay, lay 60 feet of water. Weeks of falling and bailing with buckets and crude pumps failed to lower the level. The next year, Dr. Lind and his crew sank another shaft, close and parallel with the pit, and at 100 feet they started burrowing toward the treasure. They had to scramble for their lives, however, when water suddenly burst into their shaft and filled it to the same level as the water in the pit. The quest left Simeon Linz practically penniless. In 1861, a new organization came to the island and began an ambitious bailing project to drain the pit. Steam pumps were used to assist with work until a boiler burst and scalded one worker to death. That'd be terrible. Rumors spread quickly that the money pit was protected by a long-dead pirate's curse. Work resumed a decade later, but the treasure remained as elusive as ever. Splinters of wood brought to service by auger bits hinted that loot-filled chests or casks lured below. Spirits soared when workers hauled up a torn piece of parchment with the letters V and I on them. In 1955, a group of wealthy oilmen from Texas began work on the island. They sank several holes into the area and found that what they thought was an enormous cavern at 180 feet. Frantic excavation attempts were unsuccessful because the chamber kept flooding. More proof, argued some, that the spirits guarding the island would never allow the treasure to be disturbed. 10 years later, the money pit claimed 4 more lives, including a famous Canadian stunt driver named Robert Ristall. Ristall and 3 co-workers were apparently overcome by gaseous fumes while working in a nearby access pit, fell into the water and drowned. New hunters came and went, almost on a yearly basis, sometimes spending huge sums in their quest to conquer the money pit. Cranes and bulldozers and other heavy equipment was brought over to expedite the search. In 1965, American geologist Bob Dunfield built a causeway connecting the island to the mainland. Despite decades of rumor and speculation, the curious Oak Island hole remains as much a mystery today as it did more than 2 centuries ago. And I have to tell you guys, this book was written before the great, History Channel Oak Island series, so it's not up to date. Let me see what the date is on this again. 2000. So yeah, 23 years ago this was written. Despite decades of rumors and speculation, the curious Oak Island hole remains such a mystery today as it did more than 2 centuries ago, when young Daniel McGinnis paddled over to investigate. While some people still believe in the treasure, others suspect it might be a hoax, perpetrated by generations of writers and treasure hunters trying to raise investment capital. Rupert Farnell, author of The Money Pit Mystery, has advanced the most plausible theory. Considering the state of the block and rope discovered in 1795, the pit could not have been dug much earlier than 1780, placing the operation in the middle of the Revolutionary War. In 1778, the British garrison in New York was threatened by Washington's army, and catapultion loomed. The governor held the pay chest of all British forces in America, and it seems likely that, anxious for their safety, he ordered a detachment of Royal Engineers stationed in Halifax, Nova Scotia, to conceal the loot. Farnell argues that only a treasure of immense value, such as the pay chest, would call for so complex a hiding place as the Money Pit, and the only group in the area with enough expertise was the British Royal Engineers. There is no record of the British Army losing any great sums of money at the time, a scandal that would have led to a court-martial of the general concerned. This may mean that when the danger was past, the chests were recovered and the Money Pit is in fact empty. Another theory advanced by author William Crooker suggests that British forces under King George III built the Money Pit to dump gold they had captured from Spanish-occupied Havana, Cuba, in the summer of 1762. Until a thorough geological and archaeological survey is undertaken, it seems certain that the secrets buried within the bloodstained Money Pit in Oak Islands will forever remain a mystery. Bum, bum, ba-dum. But no, I'm pretty sure, I've seen the different things they found, and you can see British and other relics that have come up. I haven't watched it in a couple years because it just, turned into the same story repeatedly and then working all that fun stuff. But if you know, leave me some comments down below. Did they find it? I saw an article, a headline that said they finally found it, but I'm not quite certain. But I do know we do have to go to our second music break. On this music break, we have Miss Mia Savage with her band Antidote for Savages that is hailing from Phoenix, Arizona. You can find her on Instagram under Antidote for Savages with Bury Me in Heaven, one of my all-time favorites. Not a Phase, Singing to Your Grave, and The Bottom Line. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be back just under 20. You better not spit it in your face.
I won't. If I start to feel like I'm gonna laugh, then I'm gonna laugh into the cup. Alright. See this block of ice?
I do.
It's huge, right?
It's ginormous.
You see it?
It's like the one that the Titanic hit.
Oh.
I don't. Good job.
Oh, now you do again. Where you appeared.
It appeared. Speaking of which, you should start brushing your hair because you guys need to take showers for church tomorrow. Don't you want to go to church tomorrow?
high, and we can change it anytime we want. It's all we need, a choice. No record, no work, no job, no savings of money. Just a choice right now between fear and love. Just a choice right now between fear and love.
Welcome back, and thank you so much. Oh, wait, I think I'm muted. Welcome back, and thank you so much for joining me this evening on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. I just caught that. I was muted, but at least I didn't get more than one line in before I did discover that. Yeah, so far we've been doing story time. We've been reading Randall Floyd's The World's 100 Greatest Mysteries, Strange Secrets of the Past Revealed, and it's been pretty awesome. Pretty darn amazing. If I must say so myself, I've really been enjoying it, and we've gone through so many different chapters and so many different portions of that chapter with different stories. So, there's Hindenburg, the Hindenburgs, all kinds of stuff tonight. So next, we're getting into some very creepy videos. So this should be fun, don't you think? So let me go to my page sharing. So this is by Mind Junkie. If you haven't seen them before, make sure you go and check them out after this. And I think this is the top 15, could be a top 10. It's going to be a matter of 40 minutes, and I'll be interluding throughout. But yes, I'm excited to share this video with you. I love spending my free time. A lot of people think it's a waste of time watching these different videos. Hello. Doing the show.
So you're like, oh, everything's okay.
Awesome. Welcome home. All right. Sharing screen. Here we go. Mind Junkie. Yeah, there's one standing there for sure. Yeah, I'd say. These guys amaze me when they go by themselves. What the heck? Mm, I wish I had a Zoom. I don't think you're alone. It went like this. Did you see it? Real creepy. Mhm. Yeah, if it were closer, I'd say, that could be like at one point we saw the mist of his breath. But yeah, that was definitely way down the hallway. Definitely to me, a ghost. I love these guys. It was crazy. They had all kinds of stuff happen. So active. Because he thinks he is. When he was a wee boy. Bad churches. That's insane. It's like poltergeist. And the phone flies up. And this room is bad. Super active. Yeah, that's too much. He en- he ended up falling because footsteps were chasing him. I believe that Sean, I think they're all gifted, but as far as communicating, spirits wanting to communicate and mess with people, Sean is number one. Josh, he does the blessings and the clearings and stuff. He's number one in certain aspects, but number two as far as spirits communicating. So a lot of times he'll send Sean in, which makes me feel so bad for him. And then Rocky, he's very gifted too, and mostly like children. Children spirits will try to communicate with him, but yeah, it's pretty intriguing what these guys do. They've been doing this for almost 20 years. Yeah, give it to Josh. And this is amazing what they catch. If you haven't seen pictures of Jim Jones as a child, check it out because this looks exactly like him. I watched this full episode because See, there he is. If you zoom in, it looks exactly like Jim Jones as a child. Jim Jones. For sure. Looks exactly like him. So if you go to Paranormal Nightmare and you check out the whole Jim Jones video, they do go through and they talk about him as a child. He had a really hard life. There was pictures of him. He actually went to this church as a child, and he was inspired to be a priest. I think he thought he was a prophet or the Lord, which highly doubt it. Um, yeah, he started his own church, but as a child, he went to this church. I'm telling you, if you look at the photos of him, this looks exactly like him, haircut and everything. And they do a zoom in too. Mm, this one's bad. It's a. I'm not gonna say it. This is how my videos would sound if I was at a really good place. Beep 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 beep. Sorry about the English. Look over there by the wall. Not that wall, the other wall. You. Peeb. Forget that. Where's my gun? Get out of my house. Scream much? Reminds me of the outline of Scream. You just can't see the white Scream face. Uh, Ghosts of the Paranormal. Yes. What is that? Mm-mm. She's angry. Mm-mm. Yeah, I would run. Mm-mm. Don't do it. Ew. It's behind you. Oh no. You didn't even lock it? Just barely. See? It's just barely there. All you have to do is knock it a couple times. It'll come loose. Just stick through there. Did you hear that hiss? What? Oh, hell no. What? I think it's very creepy. Hmm. What is it about schools? Even Ireland? That's okay. He saw something move, but I think they're trying to let you know. I think if it was angry, the whole bottle would go flying and not just the coin being flipped about. And if you look into her video, it's actually said to be her brother that had passed. And he had come several times to visit in certain ways, not just with her, but her children. So I think it's her brother. I don't think it's an angry spirit. Hmm. No. Not the rubber chicken. Oh my gosh, it is. I've seen this one. Things tinker about. See those fingers? Eek! What would you do? I'd run and drop kick. Just kidding. There's a kid in the house. You can't do that. Mm. He's like, why are you bugging me? Hey, bestie. Are you gonna play with that? I'm not. I might take my brush handle and flick it up. I'm gonna get as close as he did. I'm gonna draw back a nub. Mm. I Did you see it? I actually missed that part. Yeah, seen this one. Hello, Boo Boo Chow. Thanks, Rob. Now start off with reading, ending with video for our listeners. He ain't that quick. What? Not again. What? See, I was wondering why he ran over there. I'm like, if I heard whistling, I'd run to the TV. This one's super creepy. Thanks. Did you hear that little chitter? And you'd think it could be like that stack of stuff on his porch, but then when he pulls back the curtain, you can see the stack of stuff. When he puts the curtain back, there's not that shadow. So is it epic editing or what? She just wants some chips. I know that was creepy, huh, Rob? Bestie, I don't even know. And then all of a sudden, look, why's there hair again? Right there in front of your face. Take your kid to the park. Go outside. Get the hell out of there. Hmm. I want to say I don't think this spirit is malevolent. Yes, maybe it's bothersome. You have to get out of bed at night and go check it out, but it hasn't hurt anyone. It's benevolent. It's there. It's communicating with your son. It's doing all these random things to bother you, but hasn't hurt anyone. Malevolent spirit could cause disastrous harm. So, all right, Chef Nan, keep going. Good job, dude. That's good too, huh? The accent's nice. Graduation. It reminds me of that video of the skinwalker because its neck was like down. If I knew where to look for the info, I would look for someone that had perhaps hung themselves. I'm not sure where exactly this class is. I think it's in Thailand or somewhere like that. But if I knew exactly when and where this happened, I would look for somebody in the class if that's any even privy to people looking for information. But look at the way the neck is hung down. Like I said, it reminds me of the videos of where you see that woman in the desert who's got the walking stick and her head's hanging down. Um, Supposed skinwalker, supposed I don't know. But yeah, that is just weird to me. I think it's a student that didn't make it through because of pressure and actually hung themselves. I don't know. It's pretty sad. Oh, Poppy, she's so cute. The tufty tail. Ruh Shaggy. What's that? Mm-mm. Oh, yes. Mm. Sorry. This place is so scary. Um, you should, because you're by yourself. Why do you do that? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Hey, on that note, you guys, I do have to end the Spreaker show, so here we go. Gotta play the outro music. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me tonight on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies, wherever you may be listening this evening. Beyond the Omniverse, I had a wonderful time, and I can't wait to do it again. Tomorrow night, we have Mr. Stephen B. Vaney on the show, and it's going to be epic. We're going to be talking about the mysterious death of Lisa Marie Presley, as well as Skinwalker Ranch. Guess what? History Channel has the rights to that, so now it's Ferrari Ranch, is what it's named, so we can't call it Skinwalker Ranch anymore. And other paranormal things like hitchhikers and such. It's going to be awesome. Make sure you catch up with us on all of our mini outlets, and you guys don't forget, we're all in this together. Together, we can make the world a little better. And together, my friends, we are Paradox Media, because without you, there is no us. Until next time, nighty night, love and light. Take care of my yous, and I'll see you back here tomorrow night. Same crazy time, same crazy place. You can even bring your tinfoil hats if you wanna.